Welcome to the Human Side of Money, a show dedicated to equipping financial advisors with the skill set required to work with emotional human beings on the emotionally charged topic of money. You'll get practical tips and insights on applying behavioral finance into your practice from conversations with fellow advisors, industry consultants, and experts in the fields of behavior, psychology, communication, and more. Each episode is designed to help you enhance client outcomes of your advisory business. Now here's your host, Brendan Frazier.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Human Side of Money, powered by RFG Advisory, where today we're going to talk about a little known secret that McDonald's employed back in 1948 that forever changed the trajectory of their business, and then how it can be applied to anybody who's serving clients and feels like you're basically just playing a game of whack-a-mole every day. That one of the moles pops up and you hit it, and the next thing you know, you look over and the next one pops up and you hit it, and it's like you get one email and you respond to it, you get one phone call and you respond to it, and as soon as you get done with one, the next one pops up, you take care of it, there's another thing to take care of, and you look up and it's the end of the day already, and you look at your to-do list and there's still 5 to 10 more things on there to do. Or for anybody that says, hey, I sit there sometimes and I think I do a really good job for my clients, but I still wonder, am I doing enough? You sit there and go, I do all of these things, or I feel like I do these things, but should I be doing more? Is that enough? Could I be doing more? Should I be doing it more frequently? Or my personal least favorite, or the one that always bothered me the most, is the one where you leave work, you go home, you're having dinner with your family, or you're laying there in bed late at night, and all of a sudden it hits you. You think about the client that you met with earlier, and you go, oh shoot, have we done their estate planning review yet? When was the last time that we went over their insurance documents? When was the last time that we looked at a Roth conversion? And then I would ask you this, or to think about it like this. If I came to you and I said, I have a list of your entire client base. I'm sitting here looking at it, all of your households, all of your clients. If I were to pick a name off of that list and then say, hey, when was the last time that you did a Roth conversion analysis for them? Or if you don't do Roth conversions or you don't work with retirees, pick whatever it is you should be doing for them. Could you answer that question with confidence, saying exactly what you did and when you did it? The reality is that most people can't. We all want that predictability. We all want that confidence and consistency that comes with client service, but it rarely happens. And so that's where McDonald's is going to come in. And so if you're struggling with those things, like I know many of us are, that's where we need to go and look at McDonald's back in 1948. If we go back to 1948, McDonald's operated like the majority of restaurants at that time. They had these huge menus where you could pick anything and everything that you wanted to order. The same person who took your order would then go back and make the food. They would deliver it to you. They would also be the same person that collected the payment. And so what that did was it led to, as you would imagine, a lot of unpredictable ordering, because you have these huge menus of things to choose from. So you never knew what you were going to get from each person. Rarely would you get the same order back to back. So you're always making different things. It led to a wide variety of food quality, because you're ordering not only so many different things, but if one person's taking the order and then making it, you may order a burger from one person on Friday and have it made one way, and then you go back 3 days later and you order it from another person and it's made a completely different way. But the worst part, the part that shocked me the most, is that the average wait time was between 20 and 30 minutes, which seems unfathomable, there we go, at McDonald's at this point in time. Their founders, one of which is Ray Kroc, probably the most notable, recognized that they were struggling, and they were struggling not because they didn't have good food. They were struggling because everything was chaotic. Operationally, everything was chaotic. So they did something radical, something that most people don't know about, something that from a business perspective, if you're running a business, you hear this and you think it sounds absolutely insane. They shut down for 3 months. They said, we're going to shut down for 3 months. We need an opportunity to reimagine, redesign this business structure and what we're doing if we're going to be able to get to where we want to go. They recognized that what they were doing was okay, but it was chaotic. And if they wanted to grow, if they wanted to get where they needed to go, it was going to require a redesign. And in today's day and age, it sounds insane to shut down for 3 months, but that's what they did. That's what they knew they needed to do. And that was the inflection point. That's when everything changed. And that's where the trajectory of McDonald's completely took off. So what did they do? They implemented what they called the speedy service system. And they did a number of things. They made a lot of changes. There were 3 core things that they did that you can point to and say, oh, that made a big difference for McDonald's moving forward. Number one, they took their menu, their huge menu of all these different items, and they cut it down to 9 core items. So that was the first thing they did. They eliminated the complexity. Number two, they designed their kitchens for flow. So they literally got a piece of chalk, took out some chalk, and mapped the kitchen floor into sections so that every worker had a very defined space that they were working in. And then when they were in that space, they knew exactly what the task was that they needed to accomplish at that point in time. And then number three, they standardize every step of the entire process to eliminate uncertainty and know exactly how things needed to be done for a higher level of consistency. So how long did the burgers need to stay on the grill? That was documented, that was explained, that was standard. What are the portion sizes? Portion sizes were standard. How much ketchup to put on a burger? That was standard. The packaging processes were standard. It took what McDonald's was doing and it eliminated the inconsistent food quality and created a more consistent experience. And we all look at it today and we see what McDonald's has become as a result of making these changes from a business perspective for all the obvious reasons. But the one that stands out to me the most that I mentioned earlier, when I said it's shocking to think that McDonald's could have, at one point in time, could have taken 20 to 30 minutes to deliver food. What happened was once they made these changes and implemented these changes, the average wait time dropped from 20 to 30 minutes down to 30 to 60 seconds. From 20 to 30 minutes down to 30 to 60 seconds. So you can imagine, you don't even have to go to business school or have a business degree to understand the magnitude and the impact that has on a business. Number one, probably most importantly, from a client experience perspective, you go from waiting 20 to 30 minutes to getting your food within 30 to 60 seconds. I mean, that in and of itself was probably enough. But then you figure, all right, well, now you're getting that many more burgers out, that many more burgers or whatever it was they were selling sold. That goes straight to the bottom line. It's a boost to revenue. It's a boost to profitability. So they made these 3 changes, drastically impacted both the client experience, but also the business as a whole, the profitability and its ability to grow and scale. And now we look at it today, and because of those 3 months that they spent shut down, reimagining and redesigning, McDonald's is the massive empire that it's become. Now, if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, that's interesting, Brendan. I guess I have some facts I can tell at the next party I go to, but I don't run a burger business. I run an advisory business. I've got good news for you. There are some parallels. There's a connection that can be made between McDonald's and running an advisory business. Let's put it like this. Most advisory businesses run like the pre-1948 McDonald's, the pre-3-month shutdown McDonald's. You serve a wide range of clients and you do a lot of things for a lot of people. Everything's customized. It's mostly reliant upon your memory to get things done and do the things that you need to do, maybe with a light touch of CRM and technology involved. You often feel guilty, like we said earlier. You feel guilty. You're always wondering, am I doing enough? Have I done enough? Do I need to be doing more? And then you're also sitting there going, how does the time get away from me every day? You let these inbound requests, these reactive requests dictate your day, and you never get done the things that you need to get done as a result. A lot of advisory firms look exactly like the pre-1948 McDonald's. Now, this isn't going to come as a shocker to anybody. If you've ever been to McDonald's, you ever eat McDonald's. McDonald's secret, their key to their success is not the quality of their food. It's not how good their burger tastes. I mean, if anybody's ever heard somebody say, you know what, McDonald's is amazing. We go to McDonald's because we just absolutely love the burger. You cannot get a better tasting burger anywhere else. Let me know. Still never heard it to this day. Their secret, their key to success, or we should say one of their pillars to success when they went back and they reimagined, they had this inflection point and everything changed, wasn't a higher quality burger. It was their design. It was their intentional design to create a better client experience, build the infrastructure to grow and scale, and make the business more profitable. They basically went and they said, all right, we're going to segment what we offer, what we sell. We're going to make it less complex. We're going to define how it's going to be delivered, and then we're going to clarify who does what and when they need to do it. If you do it right, you can set it up so that you know exactly who you're going to be serving and working with, what you're going to do for them, when you're going to do it, and how it's going to be delivered. You can set up your client experience to know who you're doing it for, what exactly you're doing, when you're doing it, and how it's going to be delivered. And here's the amazing part about that. When you've designed that client service model and that client service system, it's a force multiplier that has exponential benefits to your business. I mean, there are very few things you can do, very few things you can implement that drastically improve your clients, you as the business owner, the firm owner, and the firm itself. But if you do this, if you can start building in this service model and systematize it to deliver, but if you can build out this service model that's automated and systematized, it does four things. It enhances the client experience because clients know exactly what they're going to get, when they're going to get it, and you're more consistent in the delivery of it. It frees up your time and mental clarity. By understanding what you're going to do and when you're going to do it and how it's going to be done, you don't stress all the time about whether things are getting done. You know when they're going to get done. You actually have more time in your day and more mental space to tackle and focus on and accomplish other things that are important to the business. It actually allows you to grow and scale without pain and without stress. So a lot of times the complications that come with growing an advisory firm are the fact that there's so much focus on growth that as you grow, things break later on down the road. But if you have this systematized service model in place, what it does is it builds the infrastructure so that as you grow, you don't have the pain that grows and compounds all at the same time. And then lastly, for some of you, most importantly, just like it did for McDonald's, it does the same thing for your advisory firm where it elevates, it boosts your profitability and the overall value of the firm. Very few things that you can do that enhance the client experience, give you more time and mental clarity, allow you to grow and scale faster, and then elevate profitability and the value of the firm. That's why it's a force multiplier if you know how to do it and if you can do it right. So as we move into talking about that, we're going to take the blueprint that McDonald's gave us. They gave us some key insights that we can leverage and bring back to change the trajectory of your business. So let's just say they had their speedy service system. We're going to talk about how you install the advisor version of the speedy service system, which is effectively a systematized client service model or a systematized client service system. Let's go back through the three main changes that McDonald's made and then talk about what those changes look like when they're applied within the context of an advisory firm or an advisory business. Number one, they cut the menu. Remember, they went from this huge menu down to 9 items. They decided they weren't going to try to serve everything to everybody. It was too complex. They wanted to reduce the complexity so that they could provide a more simplified experience, but also higher quality. And so the advisor version of this is cutting the menu to reduce complexity through what's called segmentation. Instead of saying, I'm going to do everything for everybody, you start segmenting and get really clear on here's what I'm going to do and here's who I'm going to do it for. You probably have a group of your clients out there right now who you're doing things for that they don't even need, value, or want. You probably have another group of your clients, by the way, that you're doing things for and you're not doing enough. There are other things that they need, value, and want that you're not doing, but you're trying to do so many things for so many people that you're not clear on what you should be doing for the right people. There's a research report that came out from Cerulli a couple of years ago where they asked advisors, hey, what is the number one challenge? What's the number one thing you face, number one barrier you face to productivity? And by far and away, the number one response was spending too much time serving too many non-ideal clients. And ultimately, that's just another way to say, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do and who I'm going to do it for. That's where segmentation becomes infinitely valuable. Where you get really clear and you say, okay, I have this group of clients that get this delivery, this service model, and this level of service. I have this group of clients that get this level of service. Now, if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I don't know how to do service differently for my clients, which we have an advisor that I worked with directly on this, and he said that exactly. He said, I don't feel comfortable doing different things for different clients. Don't worry, there's still a way to do it. So we're going to get to that in just a second. But at the end of the day, you want to get really clear on who you're going to serve and what you're going to do for them. You may have a group of clients that you're going to serve differently than others based on a variety of reasons. Let's pause for a minute and address the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room being the fact that probably everybody listening, if not the vast, vast majority of those of you listening, have clients that you work with where the services that you're providing are worth way more than what they're paying. And it's no fault of their own, but the revenue that they're generating is not covering the service that you provide and the value of that service you provide. In fact, if we want to look at it in a positive way, what we would say is that they're getting the deal of the century. Some of your clients who aren't paying as much, who aren't generating as much revenue, are absolutely getting a steal, the deal of the century. Now, what do we do in the situation where you go, hey, I have clients that don't meet my service model. I have clients who, based on what I do, it's not necessarily right for them. Based on what I do, it's a high value service. They may not be able to pay the fees and deliver the revenue that they need to justify that level of service. All right. And if you feel like you're serving too many non-ideal clients, that basically means you feel like you're doing too many things for too many people, which means it's time to get really clear and redesign your service model so that you know exactly what you're going to do and who you're going to do it for, that you know who this client segmentation is, and you can provide services that they need, while at the same time going, I may have clients who need a different level of service based on the revenue that they generate and the revenue that they provide, and I can align my service model accordingly. So let's do this. Let's go through the 3 different ways that you can do segmentation for your clients. Now, this is a very math-heavy, formulaic approach, a very math-heavy, formulaic part and explanation in the process, which does not make for very fun, very good at podcasting. Whether you're watching it on YouTube, whether you're listening, it's not designed for this, which is why we created the companion guidebook. It's called the Client Segmentation Workbook. So I'm going to go through the 3 ways that you can do it. If you want to actually do it and go through the work of doing it, go download this workbook. It's got fields that you can fill in. It takes you through the entire process. It just doesn't make for very good listening. It's more of a hands-on exercise. So number 1, first way is you can segment by profitability. And this is a pretty simple exercise, but all you do is you generate a list of your clients, a list of your households. You create a list that shows the revenue per household. And then you say, is the revenue that they bring in less than or greater than my cost to serve each client? Now, that also depends on you knowing the cost to serve the client, which again is referenced and mentioned, and there's some help in the workbook. If you go to the show notes and download the workbook, it'll walk you through that. But if you know what your cost to serve is, I call it the profitability line. If you know what the cost to serve is, you run a list of your clients and their revenue, and what's going to happen is you draw a line, and you're going to have clients that show up either as profitable or not profitable. I also think you then I recommend going in and creating a 10% buffer so that if your profitability line's $5,000 and somebody's at $4,200, you say, all right, well, that's not that big of a deal, but you do have to draw the line somewhere. So maybe you create a 10 to 20% buffer and say, okay, 5,000 is profitable, but I'll take anybody that's within 20%. So there's the line of profitability is 4,000. And then what happens is you then start segmenting them by color. So you've got anybody that's profitable is green. Anybody that's in the buffer zone between 4,000 and 5,000 is yellow. And then anybody below that is red. And what you've done there effectively is created 3 different segments of people, 3 different segments of clients. And so in reality, you should build and can serve your profitable clients differently than your non-profitable clients. So those that are in the green, you create a service model for. Those that are in the yellow, you decide based on some criteria we're going to look at in a minute. Are they green or are they red? And then for the red clients, you design a client service model for that's more tailored to them and what they need and the revenue that they provide. That's number 1. Number 2 is what we call segmenting through tiering. And you can tier in 2 ways. The first way you can tier is by number of households. So what you do is you generate a list of all of your households. Let's say you have 100 households and you want to create 4 different tiers. or 3 different tiers, it doesn't matter. But if you say, I want to create 4 different tiers, you take your total number of households, you divide by the number of tiers. So 100 households divided by 4 means you've created 4 tiers of 25 households each. I'm no math major, by the way, but they tell me that 100 divided by 4 is 25. You then have 4 equally numbered tiers of 25 households, and then you can go in and design your service models accordingly. Tier 1 gets this, tier 2 gets this, tier 3 gets this, tier 4 gets this. The other way to tier, rather than by a straight number of households, is by revenue. So if you look at it that way, and again, I'm just going to keep throwing this out there. In the show notes, there is a client segmentation workbook that walks you through all this, explains it step by step, and then gives you fields to fill in to calculate it, to help calculate it with you. You go in and you set for total revenue, you say, all right, I'm going to take my total revenue for the year. If I want 4 tiers, then I'm going to first say what's 25% of my total revenue and then fill up that bucket. So here, I know that probably makes 0 sense. Let me walk through an example. If I have revenue of $500,000 and I say the first tier is going to be I need 4 tiers. The first tier will be 25% because I need 4 tiers. 25% of my total revenue of $500,000 is $125,000. So then I go look at my household revenue and I say, okay, I'm going to go through and add up by my household revenue until I get to $125,000. So let's just say, for example, I go through, I'm adding it up, and it takes 10 households to hit $125,000. My first tier is 10 households, and that's the first quarter of my revenue. And then you keep going through and doing that for the second tier, the third tier, and the fourth tier. That's number 2. So you've got segmenting by profitability. Green, yellow, red. You've got segmenting by household number or by revenue percentage. The last one is you segment based on client need or client service, right? So you may have different types of clients that require different types of service, which means you need to create different service models. For example, a 65-year-old retiree requires a different level of service, or not even level, a different type of service than a 48-year-old business owner, right? The retirees sitting there going, hey, I need Monte Carlo projections. I need Roth contribution or Roth conversion analysis. I need to know tax efficient withdrawal strategies. The 48-year-old business owner may need to know some of that, but they also may need to know about their insurance needs. They may be more interested in legacy planning. They may be more interested in business valuation. Those are 2 different segments of clients that require 2 different service models. And so you could segment those 2 clients differently based on how you're going to deliver the service that they need. Those are the 3 different ways to start approaching segmentation. Now, there's a crucial element. No matter what route you take, no matter which one you look at and say, I'm going to start segmenting this way because that makes the most sense for me and my business where I'm at, there's a crucial layer that you add on at the end of each one of these approaches. And it's the part where we say, hey, you know what? Client relationships, my business is not just about money and revenue and households and the type of service that I provide. I also want to factor in other things. And so you also want to overlay 4 other factors. When you're thinking about how do I segment, how do I place these clients in a way that they're tiered, that they're segmented, you've got to factor in 4 more things. Number 1 is trajectory. Trajectory means they may not be the ideal fit now, but what is their future trajectory? So for example, let's say you're in an AUM model and you say, hey, I'm not profitable until somebody's got, based on my fee, until they have 500, it's not 500 million. Wow, that'd be quite the business model. 500,000 in assets under management. Then you go, well, right now they only have 400,000. Right? So technically they're not profitable, but you look at it and you say, that's a 41-year-old couple and he owns a business where they're making $1 million a year. He's putting 40,000 away into retirement every year, and he's going to sell his business for X amount at some point in the future. The trajectory would say that even though that person may not be profitable, even though they may normally land in tier 2 or tier 3, You can manually bump them up and do a different tier because you can see the trajectory that they're on. Number two, the second factor you want to weigh is referability. So you may have somebody that would land in tier 2 or tier 3 or maybe determine it not profitable. But if they're one of those clients, it's a gold mine from a referability standpoint, or they know everybody, or they have a proven track record of sending clients your way, you probably still want to provide a different level of service to them because of the fact that they're still benefiting your business in a different way. Number three is fit. So if you sit down, you map it out, and you're like, hey, I'm going to work with this specific subset of clients. I want to work with business owners 45 to 50 years old who have 8 figures in revenue and want to spend more time with their family. And you find a business owner who's in that range, but they're not quite to where they fit perfectly as in terms of a revenue perspective, in terms of profitability, but they're a perfect fit for who you want to work with and where you provide the most value, and they know other people that you work with. You can override that, right? You can go, okay, well, they would normally fall here. I'm going to bump them up because that's a perfect fit. Last one, maybe the most overlooked, but super important, is energy. Is this person, is this household, is this family energy draining or energy producing? Do you enjoy spending time with them or do you not? Where you see this factor, and most often is you have a client who would normally pop up in the top tier or one of the top tiers based on revenue. And you go, hey, this client based on the revenue is a top client. We want to do all these things for. If you look at it and you go, hey, this person's actually an energy draining, it can be okay to drop them down a tier. There's no clear-cut formula. You got to weigh all these things. You got to look at it and go, okay, I'm going to segment my clients. And once I segment them, I want to look at trajectory, referability, fit, and energy. But you definitely want to overlay those other factors because it's not just about revenue and profitability. Once you've done that, you've got your tiers and your segments mapped out. Then we go to the second thing that McDonald's did. So you now know who it is that you're going to be working with. Now you need to map over what it is that you're going to be doing for them. So McDonald's, in the example we gave earlier, not only did they cut their menu, but the next thing that they did was they designed the kitchen in a way where they took the chalk and they mapped out the areas where things needed to be done. So those who were there would know exactly what they were there for and what they needed to do. So the same thing goes for advisors. Once you've segmented your clients in a certain way, once you know exactly who you're going to be working with, the next step is to map your service and create a standard service model where you know exactly what each client's going to get, how often they're going to get it, and then in what format they're going to receive it in. So again, you know exactly what each client is supposed to get. You know exactly when they're going to get it and in what format that they're going to receive it in. And once you know that and you can systematize that, the game changes because then you don't ever worry, am I doing enough? Am I providing enough value? Are we covering the things we need to cover? Because it's planned out, advanced, systematized, and automated. So how do you start doing that? It's actually not as hard as it seems. The very first thing you need to do is get really, really clear on what it is that you do, or not just what you do, what it is that you want to do and make sure that you're doing for this segment of your clients. So here's how you do it. We created a sheet called the Client Service Model Builder. I'm looking at it right now. So envision this with me. It's a spreadsheet. On the left-hand side, in the far left column, the rows are filled up with a list of services that you can provide or will provide. Basically, it's a menu where you go, all right, these are a list of things that I can do or want to do for my clients. So it starts with meeting cadence and calls. So it's here, how many meetings you're going to have, how many phone calls you're going to make. Then there's financial planning categories. So it lists out the services that you provide from a financial planning perspective. I'm not going to read them all because that's boring. Things like cash flow and budgeting, retirement projections, benefit review, life insurance analysis, estate planning, tax planning, stock option analysis, charitable giving strategies, business valuation, all the financial planning services. And then there's also a list of relationship building services, coordinating meetings with COIs, event invites, holiday parties, birthday call, birthday card, all those things. You start with all of the possibilities. Next to that, you'll have however you want to break it down. So if you decided you wanted different tiers, it would go tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. It could be retirees, business owners. It could be green, yellow, red. However you broke it down, you put those categories at the top. And what you do is you go down through each service that could be provided in the list of services for each group and write down and mark down if you're going to do it and how often. And so, for example, you might say retirement projections. Yes, once a year. Life insurance analysis. Yes, every other year. Tax planning. Yes, every year. Estate planning. Yes, every other year. So what you're doing is you're going through and mapping out, yes, this is what I'm going to do for this group of people and how often that I'm going to do it. So for every tier, every group, every segment, you're writing down and mapping out not only what you're going to do, but the frequency with which you're going to do it. And then the key, once you do that, is to take that and go from not just what you're going to do, but when you're going to do it. So you now have a list. In theory, you now have a list of the services that you're going to provide and how often you're going to provide them. But now we got to bridge the gap and say, if that's what you're going to do, when are you going to do it? And so you create what we call a client service calendar. The client service calendar is how you get really clear on when you're going to deliver what you said you're going to do. Remember earlier, we said you need to get really clear on who you're going to work, who you're going to serve, what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and how you're going to do it. And so we talked through the who, we talked through what you're going to do. Now we got to get clear on when you're going to do it. That's what the client service calendar is for. The client service calendar takes the list of what you're going to do and maps it over to the calendar. So it shows by month what you're going to do. So for example, it might say in April, March, actually, let's say February, March, April, you're going to do your investment review and retirement projections. And then in October, November, you're going to do your tax planning. In July and August, you're going to do your every other year insurance analysis or estate planning analysis. But the key is to not just have a list of what you're going to do, but then start saying, here's exactly when I'm going to do it. Now, here's also the secret sauce with these service calendars, these client service calendars, is you can use it as a client-facing or prospect-facing document, because one of the challenges that comes with this business and financial planning is what we do is really, really helpful, powerful, and impactful, but a lot of it's intangible. And if you can create a client service calendar that shows clients or prospects exactly what you're doing and when you're doing it, it illuminates and highlights the value that you're providing. And from a client perspective, they don't have to wonder, what are they going to do that? When are we going to get to it? They know exactly what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. So not only is it great from a client service perspective, from systematizing the client experience, but it's a great deliverable to give to clients and to give to prospects. All right, that's number 2. So we've gone through cutting the menu, or for advisors, segmenting. We went through designing and mapping the kitchen, or for advisors, which means building out your service model and your service calendar. Step number 3, from the McDonald standpoint, was standardizing every step of the process. Remember, they went through and they said, we want to create a more consistent client experience. Wow, they went through and they said, we want to create a more consistent food quality. So instead of the same person taking the orders and going back and making it, we're going to define the roles clearly, say, here's who does what, and tell them exactly what they need to do. So we said, here's how long the burgers need to be on the grill. Here's how long we're going to prepare the fries for. Here's how much ketchup to put on the bun. So not only did they clearly define what needed to be done for consistency purposes, but they also defined roles clearly and said, here's who's going to do this and here's what exactly that they need to do. And for advisory firms, this is the how in the framework that we talked about earlier. So not just who you're going to be working with and what you're going to be doing, but when you're going to be doing it and how it's going to be delivered. That's where we get into that piece. And doing that is some combination of the people and the talent that you work with and your technology. So here's what you do. For every service that you have on the calendar, again, so remember, we've gone from this list of services in the service model builder onto the annual service calendar. And so for every service on the service calendar, there should be an SOP, a standard operating procedure or a workflow that clearly lays out the steps that are involved and who owns each and every step. The importance of this came up in episode 149 with Emily Rassam. Emily was on the podcast, and not only is she one of the best implementers of the human side of advice and has such great intentionality and processes for doing the human side of advice, it became clear as we were talking in that episode, in that conversation, when she was talking about how important workflows are to her and how important they are for allowing her to do the human side, where I realized that we probably need to spend a little bit more time on that, because she would even say that the reason that she's able to do the human side the way that she does it is because of the efficiency that's created through the workflows. And so I mentioned that because I think if you can do that, it actually frees you up and helps you elevate the human side or the human aspect of the experience. But you want to know, with an SOP or a workflow, you need to get clear on who owns which part of the process. So for example, if you say we're going to meet with these clients and talk about retirement projections in March, who's sending out the scheduling email and when are they sending it? Who prepares the PowerPoint or the review deck or updates the software to make sure everything's ready to go prior to the meeting? Because, and those are just two small examples, right? But once those things are clear, once you know not just what's going to be done, but who's going to do it, then you go to the next step where you leverage your technology. And when we think about how things get done, you go, okay, we don't just want to know what we're doing and when we're doing it, but how it's going to be delivered. How is clearly defining roles for the people that are doing it, but how also involves technology to make this as automated and systematized as possible. So you want to get roles clear. You want to get the process laid out and roles clear, who does what, but then you bring tech in. You leverage your technology to automate and systematize the process. Once the roles are clear and you know who's going to be doing what and when they're supposed to be doing it, then you go in and you bring in and leverage your technology to automate and systematize as much of this process as possible. So like we did with one of our advisors with using Salesforce, you go into your CRM. What you do is you go in and you say, okay, let's say, for example, you have 4 tiers. You go and say, all right, for tier 1, here's exactly what I do and when I'm supposed to do it. So you set up each tier with the tasks that need to be done, the workflows that are required, the person that's responsible for it. And so whenever you segment, you go into your client base, you put them into a certain tier and it automatically uploads for you and says, hey, they're in this tier, which means you're supposed to be meeting with them in these months. Here's what you do when you're not meeting with them. Everything becomes automated. It becomes systematized. You don't have to manually track what's happening. You can look at it and go, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do and when I'm supposed to be doing it. And the next thing you do is you set up a dashboard that helps you track where everyone is in the process. So tier 1, here's where we're at. Here are the things that we've done, and here are the things that we still need to do this year. Number 2, as far as tech goes, and there's a lot of different things we could talk about as far as technology goes to automate and systematize this thing. You want to build your email system so that it has templates that are specifically designed for the client and the type of meeting that you're having. So, for example, let's say that it's a tier 1 client that's in their second meeting of the year where you know you're going to be doing your tax planning with that client. Then you've already got an email ready, built out, the template for an email that you send out 4 weeks prior to the meeting with a video in it that says you can't wait to meet with them once again this year. You're going to talk about how to plan their taxes to minimize their tax bill. And before they come, here's a link so they can upload some of their documents so you can start preparing to talk about ways that they can minimize their taxes both this year and moving into next year. But instead of sending it 20 different times, you've got it automated. You've got a template there that you can pull from that you send, and it's easy, it's simple, and you know who's sending it, you know when they're supposed to send it, and you know what everything looks like because you did just like McDonald's did. You standardized every step of the process. You knew what was supposed to be done, who was going to do it, and you leveraged technology to automate and systematize it. All right, there you have it. If nothing else, you're going to walk away. You're going to be able to go to a party this week and impress some of your friends and family with a stat about McDonald's or a story about McDonald's that they probably never heard before. That's worst case scenario. Best case scenario, you're going to take what you learned here to segment your clients and reduce complexity, to map out the services that you're going to provide and who you're going to provide them to and when you're going to provide them with an annual service calendar. And then you're going to standardize that service by making the roles clear as to who's supposed to do what and when they're supposed to do it, and then leveraging technology to automate it and systematize it. Because again, if you do these things, just like McDonald's, it has the ability to forever change the trajectory of your business. It has the ability to enhance your client experience. It has the ability to free up time and mental clarity for you. It's going to allow you to grow and scale with less pain because you're building the infrastructure and the system that as you grow, you have the service model already in place. So adding more people into your business doesn't break the business. You already know exactly what you're going to do for each of them. And at the end of the day, because you have this segmented and systematized, it's going to elevate your profitability and the value of your firm. And again, just as a reminder, we talked about a lot of it takes some work, especially that part around segmenting your clients. It gets really granular and analytical and numbers based. Don't forget, in the show notes for this episode, there's going to be a link to the client segmentation workbook. You click on that link, you go, you download it, and it'll tell you exactly, you go through and find the segmentation path that you want, and it'll take you through with instructions, step by step, what you need to do in order to segment your clients. And then you can start building out the service model for those different segments or for those different tiers. All right. That's all I got. Hope this was helpful. Hope your clients and your practice are infinitely better off. And if nothing else, as always, remember this: plans and pie charts don't change lives. People do.
Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of the guest. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, their clients, or their employees. The commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by the guest or RFG Advisory or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change anytime without notice. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. The guest and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.